seasons. We're getting ready to go into spring. There's all kind of seasons, but when we think of seasons, we think of winter, spring, summer, fall. We think of those seasons, but we don't really think about the seasons of life. We don't really think about the seasons of what's currently going on.
Yeah, busy.
Yes.
Is what I call our season.
Well, I mean, yes, right now with 2 teenage kids, I mean, our season is very, very busy. It's almost, if you don't meal prep on Sundays,
we don't eat well during the week.
Sometimes we don't even eat.
Probably not.
So we have to do things like that to prepare during these seasons. When you hear seasons, what does that mean to you?
I just think of there's different times depending on what we're going through and the age of our kids. Honestly, I connect it to the age of our kids on how busy or not busy we are and how we handle certain circumstances. When the kids were newborns or babies, we stayed at home all the time, what they were capable of doing. I even backtracked when we was dating and we didn't have kids. Our season looked completely different. Our attitude was different. Though we hung out with each other all the time, and now that our kids are teenagers, it's like, when can we get together? Or when are we not sleeping? The planning, logistics is so different, vastly different from each season.
Absolutely. So what does our next season look like? Because, I mean, the kids are going to be graduating. They're going to be out of the house. And so have you ever thought about what that season is going to look like?
Well, thankfully, we like being with each other.
Yes.
So I'm hoping, my love language is travel. I'm hoping that we're going to be able to slow down and really just hang out with each other. We're going to have grown kids. They're going to have different needs when that season comes. And to be able to really enjoy being with each other outside of kids.
Yes.
Not that I don't love our kids, right? But it's going to be cool. It's going to be different.
Absolutely. And we have so many people that we photograph, so many families that we photograph, and we see people on a weekly basis, and they're all in different seasons of life.
They are.
Some of them, their kids are super young. Some of them, their kids are teenagers. Some of them, their kids are married.
With children of their own.
Yeah.
And it's so funny. You'll have a grandmother come in, a brand new grandmother, and they're like, oh, it's the best thing ever. I get to have kids, but then I can send them home. And I'm like, oh, that sounds so cool.
Yeah.
At least right now when we're in the midst of it. There's days where we don't get home until like 9 o'clock. And we're like, oh, we're so tired. But in the end, it's worth it. Oh, my goodness. We have so much fun with our family, especially during this season. Conversations are great.
Yeah, absolutely. Conversations are great. I know this season for us, we are switching from being parents. We're still parents, but we're transitioning from parents to parent advisors.
Oh, I know. Those are the conversations we're having.
Yeah.
When they're toddlers, you have these boundaries and you want to protect your kids from everything. So you're kind of like not hovering. You want them to do their thing, but you're in that protection mode. This is why you're not supposed to do this. That's why I say no type of season. But then now that they're teenagers, they've went through that. This is why I say no. We still have to remind them every now and then. But, you know, how do you feel about that? What are the consequences? If you say yes to this, you're saying no to this. I mean, so it's kind of like, it's strange. We still have to protect them, but we are advising them and they're figuring out what the outcomes are for the decisions that they have to make. So it's neat. We have a son now who is got a girlfriend, and these are the conversations that we're having now. It's a completely different than it was 4 months ago when he could have cared less about a girlfriend. And now he's entering a different type of friendship and relationship. And these are things we want to talk to him about. And we want to show him what a healthy relationship is. And even with our daughter, she's in middle school. And those conversations about friendships have changed from when she was in elementary school.
Yeah, absolutely. All the seasons are important. But as parents, what do you see important seasons as? Right now, our kids are transitioning. Our daughter's going to be going to high school. That's a transition. And I think you just mentioned it, transitioning from the toddlers to children, then from children to teenagers to young adults. Those seasons, and I think all those seasons are important. But, if somebody said, I want to capture a portrait of my family, but I don't know when's the best time, what would you recommend as far as the season of life?
Well, I've always told our clients is that every family should have a portrait of when their children are young, like 2 to 6, and when their family has teenagers. Because to me, those are substantial ages to capture. You're in a totally different mindset and season when they're young, but you see that youthfulness in your kids. They still look like your babies. You have those stories of having a good time as kids and things like that, but then you're in a completely mindset and season, and you look completely different. You've matured, your kids have matured, and you have a different story when they're teenagers. I think those are huge, substantial ages when it comes to a family portrait. And I think seeing the differences on your wall, you're like, I remember when you were that little, and you have those stories to tell. And then when you see them when they're grown and they have families of their own, but yeah, you have this portrait of you and your family when they were teenagers. You're like, you remember when you did this? I mean, the stories are different. So to me, every family deserves a young family portrait, and when they're teenagers, before the family completely changes and they have spouses of their own. So to me, those are substantial ages when it comes to a family portrait.
Yes. Even from that, and a lot of people ask, what are important ages to capture our children? 1 year of age has always been super popular. Everyone wants to, but it wants to capture that baby.
Yep.
And at 1, that's when they're transitioning from baby to toddler.
Yep.
But when they're 5, that's when they're transitioning from toddler to a
big kid.
Big kid. Yeah, we call them big
Great,
kids.
big kids. I mean, to me, in between 5 and 6 years old is when their features and their personality and how they think is going to take them all the way through adulthood. I think that is a huge age to capture your kid, but yet they still look like your little baby.
Yep.
And then you move on to me, preteen. I personally think 11 and 12-year-olds, in my opinion, is a great age, even above a 13-year-old portrait. Because to me, you still have that youthfulness, and they're still thinking as a kid, but yet they're pretty close to being a teenager and sassiness and things like that. But they have their own personality and style. So they're like, Mama, I don't want to dress in that. I want to dress in this, which I think is neat because they're thinking for themselves and they have their style. I remember when our kids were that age, and Allie's still kind of in that age group. She's developed her own style. She can put on makeup now. She can, fix her hair. I don't have to do any of that. And she definitely doesn't like my style of clothing. So, and it's fine, but that's what you want to capture in a portrait of a preteen, okay? And I do feel like a 16-year-old and a 17-year-old, that's when your kids are going to fly. That's right before they fly and go into college. And I think that's a huge time to capture them as an individual. And those are the seasons that we want to capture. Yes, you can do it every year. And yes, you can see the difference every year. But if you want to see drastic changes and drastic seasons in the kids' lives, these are the ages.
Absolutely. And seasons are important. And it's important for us to not get stuck in a season.
We need to grow.
And we
need to
should
change.
always want to grow.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I've been telling you it's one of these books I can't put down. Necessary Endings by Dr. Henry Cloud. It's an incredible book. It talks about seasons more from a business, but man, it flows right into personal and family too. So that's absolutely incredible. This is a great conversation on
I've enjoyed it.
seasons.